In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data. So we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my home office, overlooking the can of worms in downtown Rochester, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. So happy you have joined me here today. We're going to do a little more catch-up here, going to talk about some more articles, but first, a couple of announcements. This is the 9,000 download celebration episode. I think I got all that out right. We have surpassed 9,000 downloads total throughout the life of the podcast, so I am just really honored that y'all are sticking around and listening to the show. And certainly, like I said, give me some feedback. Let me know how you're enjoying the show. Let me know if you like the format of what we're doing. And we will certainly do a 10,000 download celebration episode whenever that comes, and it's coming soon. That's the cool thing about this show. You know, when I started out, I just had a trickle of listeners, and as time goes on, the number of downloads increases. I guess it would be logarithmic, right? Where I get more people now per month listening, so it was a long time between the first episode and the 5,000 celebration, but it was a much shorter time between the 5,000 and the 7,000 or 8,000 episodes. So that's that. Very soon, coming soon, we'll celebrate 10,000, and we'll try to get one of our favorite people on, maybe Dr. Mike or Sergeant Tim, to celebrate with us, because they're always a blast. All right. I also want to shout out to listener Jim from Buffalo. Thanks so much for continuing to listen. He was a fan back when I was on the radio on WYSL, and he somehow stuck with me and somehow still likes it. He actually came to Rochester, and I cleaned a Pod computer for him. He bought a computer over at Pod. I highly recommend Pod. And I cleaned it up for him, set it up for him, and he took me out to lunch, and we had a healthy garbage plate at Dogtown, so that was pretty fun. And also want to shout out to the Clone Store. If you have a hard drive that has physical damage where it just won't fire up, or it kind of fires up but it's corrupt, and you need to get your precious data off of there, remember 99% of people have no backup, right? Please have me do a backup before you have a disaster, folks, because if you do have a disaster and you have no backup, then we have to do something about it. So if you have that situation where you have a hard drive, it's dying, and you have no backup, then what I recommend is theclonestore.com. They're down in Pennsylvania, and I know the owner there, and he's been in the business forever. He knew Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, so he's been doing this quite a while, since the early 80s. So tell him you know me for sure. If you have a hard drive that's broken and you need your precious data out of there, theclonestore.com, tell him you know me. Also, Voice Meter Banana. I'm not using it right now. Today I'm just using Audacity because it's a solo episode. But whenever I do an episode where I interview someone, I need to use a program that will record not only my microphone, but also any sounds that are incoming from the computer. And the only way I've found to do that is Voice Meter Banana. it's for Windows, so I have to use my Windows machine for it, and it's donationware, and that's the best part, right? I'm thrilled to pay them because it's an incredible product and it's totally worth any kind of money. I think I gave them $40 or more. I should give them a lot more. But the idea of donationware is that they don't brutally attack and control you like DRM. So DRM is set up as a scam where you're only allowed to use it as long as they want you to use it, right? It's ostensibly anti-piracy software, but they have an evil piracy control computer that sets it up so you're only allowed to use the software if they think you can use it or they deem you worthy for the moment. And then if that company goes under, you're not allowed to use the product that you bought. So instead of the brutality of DRM, this company is donationware. So it's kind of like the honor system, like a sweet corn stand on the side of the road. You just use it, and if you like it, you give them money. And because of their laissez-faire attitude and because of the absence of the DRM brutality, I am much more likely to pay them for the use of this product, to use this product. It's mine forever. I can download it, and even if I don't give them anything, I can download it, and it's mine forever, even if they go out of business tomorrow, okay? So it's that security, right? And I'm going to talk about this when I write my books about anxiety, is that security is everything. If you are secure and you give first without counting the cost, good things will come back to you. So that's what they did. Voicemeeter Banana is donationware. If you are doing a podcast and need to interview people, I recommend you check it out. It's fairly simple. It's powerful, but it's fairly simple. The other thing I want to comment on, since the whole world is commenting right now, is Charlie Kirk. Now, I didn't watch him, I didn't know him, whatever. I found out about him afterward. And that'll probably work in his favor, so to speak, where his message will get out there now that he's gone. But look, I don't care what political party you are. As you know, on this show, I talk to people of any persuasion, and we have a talk, we have a debate, and I give them a chance to speak their mind, and they're all my friends. And same thing in my private life. I know a lot of different people, and I have a ton of clients, and I talk to people from all perspectives, and that's it. You know, they call it diversity of opinion or something like that, diversity of viewpoint, where I know all sorts of people, and I find common ground with them, right? We're all 99% the same, right? It's listening to someone and getting their take on it, and, you know, especially if it's something where I don't have any experience in it, right? If you're a veteran, I'm not a veteran, so I'm going to listen to you and respect what you have to say. I've talked to veterans of either political party and whatever it may be, okay? Just the fact of giving people man to man, letting people say what they want, and having peaceful debate is important, okay? As opposed to any kind of attempt to crush the opinions of someone else, right? If you attempt to crush someone else's opinion, that usually implies that you don't want to debate them, or that you really don't think that your viewpoint is actually better than theirs. So, in my next book, I talk a lot about how Silicon Valley aims to crush us and all that. So just the human behavior of trying to crush someone and trying to quash someone is something to look out for. So that's what's going on here. Is it shouldn't matter what your opinion is. You should be able to have peaceful debate with someone. And the message of peace is something that hopefully everyone out there is spreading right now. Spread that message of peace. And that's it. That's how we're going to make this world a better place, right? If we're on the brink of falling off a cliff and the world is polarized and all that, the only way to make it better is to take a few steps back and go back to dialogue and conversation, and remembering that we're all just people trying to put food on our table. All right. So this is a recent one from New York Post. This was August 30th, 2025. And this is interesting here. First known AI-fueled murder. And the slogan, the title of the article is "Bot Out of Hell," as opposed to "Bad Out of Hell." And so this Yahoo executive ends up taking out his mom and then himself because he trusted ChatGPT. In what was believed to be the first case of its kind, a deranged former Yahoo manager, blah, 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 and the AI bot ChatGPT allegedly fueled his paranoid belief that she was plotting against him, police officials in Greenwich, Connecticut said. So here's the whole point here. You don't want to trust AI, right? If it's you want a recipe or something, that's fine. And again, I've talked about how it's much better to shop local and actually visit. It's sad that we're talking about shop local now for websites. But yeah, actually visit the actual website of what you want to do, right? AI is just going to cobble together something and not ever check it for reality because there is no conscience, right? AI doesn't care about reality or truth. It just cobbles things together. It compiles search results. All right, it's one thing if you want to do recipes or jokes or whatever, or maybe have it proofread your document or whatever, but trusting AI as a quote-unquote trusted friend, as a confidant, I've been seeing it with people, and they're asking AI stuff that they really ought to be careful of, because it'll take whatever's on your mind and it'll just propel that. It'll enhance that, or whatever you want to say. So be really careful, because if you're paranoid and you start telling ChatGPT stuff, it has no way of sensing what state of mind you're in. It doesn't know right and wrong. It's just going with whatever it's given. And people act like this too sometimes, where people don't bother to talk about the consequences of their actions, and they just go out and start some new product or start some new service. And that's really it with AI. The people who are creating AI are doing so extremely hastily because they're all in competition in a race to the top. But the people who are implementing AI don't even bother talking about consequences. And that's the same thing with AI itself. It doesn't actually know right from wrong. It doesn't think about the implications of what it's doing. So it could tell you that, oh yeah, you know what, your mom is out to get you and you should get her and whatever. So that's the deal, folks. AI is going to make life a lot worse, right? It might help like 1% of people do 1% of things, but it's going to make the world a lot worse. And if it's one thing we don't need right now, it's more complexity and more confusion. Okay. This one is another recent one, July 2025, and my dad left this on my kitchen table the other day. This is from Electrical Contractor Magazine, and I like the title, Everybody Hertz, but it's Hertz, as in the electrical term. Are solar and wind energy really to blame for blackouts? On April 25th, 2025, a blackout occurred in most of Spain and Portugal. Dozens of theories were circulated, including claims about a rare atmospheric event or cyber attacks. And speculation may be because the majority of energy was provided by renewable sources. And 59% of Spain's electricity is solar. That's wild. And wind providing 12%, nuclear 11%, and gas 5%. Okay. This is different than most power outages, when rotational generators were the primary supplier. A rotational generator has a prime mover, such as steam or water, that rotates a turbine, okay? So they call that prime mover. It's the thing that happens to move it. Generators are designed to trip offline, to isolate themselves and prevent catastrophic damage. But this itself can cause other generators to trip and go offline and results in cascading failure. Okay, so one generator goes offline, that trips another one, then you got cascading failure. Most of the nation's wide-scale blackouts resulted from this chain reaction, like the one in 1965 that affected 13 northeastern states, the one in 1996 from Mexico to Canada in the West, and the 2003 blackout that affected 45 million people in northeastern states. I was in that one, or I lived through it, and it was summer, I was in college, and people didn't know what to do because we weren't able to play on our computers, and I went to a tech school. So we just went outside and drank beers and played Frisbee. It was pretty cool, actually. In a scenario where non-rotational generators provide the bulk of the power provided is in DC, right? So there's AC and DC, and you can look all that up, but basically AC is a rotational generator, and DC is just electricity that you get from a solar panel, okay? That must be turned into AC voltage to be sent to our homes. Same thing is true for wind turbines. It's actually converted into DC voltage, then back to AC. The investigation is ongoing, but it seems that 30 minutes before the blackout, 2 oscillations of 0.2 Hertz lasting several minutes were measured between the Iberian Peninsula grid and the European-wide grid. Okay, so the Iberian Peninsula, in other words, Spain and Portugal, are on their own grid. And that's interesting because there's a Spanish company that owns my local power company here in Rochester for whatever reason, so that's cool. And I mean, that's 0.2 Hertz doesn't seem like a lot, right? But if the whole thing is supposed to be 60 Hertz, then it might throw it off enough where it could cause damage throughout a lot of things, right? And all of our delicate electronic equipment relies on clean power, so to speak, or clean signal, as opposed to dirty electricity where you have variations and spikes and all that kind of thing. And by the way, remember, this is a huge, basic, fundamental, key point that nobody knows. You got a little surge strip, right? A little power strip or plug strip underneath your computer desk. Make sure it says the word surge. Get your microscope out, get your monocle out, look at the bottom of it, make sure it says surge. If it doesn't, that means it's fake. It's a knockoff, okay? Be careful, because at least half of the plug strip in the world are fake. Or yeah, you can plug several things into them, but they don't protect you against surges like lightning and that sort of thing. So if it doesn't say surge, recycle it or just use it for something inconsequential like Christmas lights. All right? So that's what happened there. They had a little fluctuation of 0.2 Hertz, and it shut down a lot of things, and it would cause a chain reaction. So in the Iberian Peninsula, and then it was connected to the European grid of the rest of Europe. So the lines to the European grid in France disconnected, and in order to prevent damage to the spinning turbine generators over there. A small recreational trailer has a 12-volt battery. Additional power can come from solar panels as well as shore power, right? You pull up to a campground and you plug in. And so he's talking about this smaller scale example. And you could have a 230 amp hour lithium battery, right? So that's kind of cool. You charge up your battery in your camper trailer and you've got it for extra stuff just in case you need. And, you know, if you pull over in a parking lot and need to sleep and charge your phone battery or whatever. So you've got solar panels and all that, and it powers a lithium battery for all your stuff. The test was to see if the battery could be properly charged from solar panels. So then he put some graphs up there, and the graphs illustrate what's happening during cloud transients. And basically, right, you got a solar panel, and then a cloud goes by, so you have less sunlight, so your energy that you're taking in will go down for a bit. So he depicts that on a graph. As the solar output reduces, the battery then provides the operating power during those moments. So that's really cool how it's fully seamless. You're in your trailer enjoying your vacation, and this is fully seamless, where this lithium battery provides when there's no sun, and then it acts as a reservoir, right? And then when the sun is out, the lithium battery charges, but either way, it's still providing you power as long as it can. On a partially cloudy day with high winds, power flows change quickly and unpredictably. The effect on a grid like Spain's is unimaginable. I'm glad I'm not a system operator there. I like that. So that's a good way to tie it in. But he was given an example of, hey, look, you're going to have little fluctuations even in a tiny camper. So imagine the fluctuations in a nationwide grid. All right, what we're going to do now is move toward the new model. What I used to do is print out articles and read through them and go through them with my little orange highlighter from the dollar store and go into them in depth. But as I've been mentioning, we have to raise the plow a little bit. We can't be so detailed and thorough because we've fallen so far behind. So I'm looking at my email inbox on my screen, and I'm just going to go through and knock out a couple of these articles here and just comment on them quickly. November of 2021, listener Matt submitted this article. Churches changed during the pandemic, and many aren't going back. And this is from Wall Street Journal. Religious leaders are trying to attract members for the long haul in a way that's COVID-proof and recession-proof. Scores of parishioners grew accustomed to watching services online. And Christian leaders are wrestling with how to keep their congregations going with fewer people showing up. And in-person church attendance is roughly 30 to 50% lower than it was before the pandemic. And I've seen that when I lived in Victor a couple of years ago, the priest there put something in the bulletin about the number of collections, right? We got X number of donations in this year versus the next year. So there were a lot less people sitting in the pews putting money in the baskets after COVID. And I think a lot of that, a couple things here, my take on this is that it was kind of a cleansing fire, as they say, where, look, if you don't want to be in church, if you were just sitting there because you felt obligated to, you don't have to go, right? God doesn't force anyone to do anything. He wants you there if you want to be there, right? It's like, what if you came over to my house and sat on my couch and rolled your eyes and said, oh, I'm at Mark's house, right? You don't have to be here. I don't want to make you come over, but if you're happy to come over to my house, great. That's good. So, look, so I was actually, when I lived in Victor, I drove to church daily. It was 7 minutes away, so it was pretty easy to do that. And during the pandemic, I became accustomed to streaming it, right? And it's obviously a lot easier. So now, at the moment, I just attend on weekends and then on Sundays, and then the rest of the time, I just stream it from home. So the good news is you can stream it from anywhere. I realized, hey, wait, if I'm streaming church of any kind, I stream all sorts of denominations. And if I can stream church from my computer, then why am I just doing it locally? So I started, during COVID anyway, I would watch churches in India and Italy, and that helped me brush up on my Italian, and Canada and New York City and so on, and Boston, of course. So there's that. That's pretty cool. You can travel, so to speak, and that way you can hop around the globe. But look, here's the issue. It's fun and convenient and whatever to watch church from anywhere, and I could sit in my pajamas and sit at my kitchen table and eat lunch and breakfast and watch it. But here's the thing you're missing out on. The real fellowship, right? There's one church I watch in Virginia, and there's a little chat box on the right, and you can say, hey, everyone, hey. But that's it. That is the extent of your fellowship, all right? So that's what you're missing if you're still one of these people who's staying home and streaming church. You're missing out on the fellowship, the real human interaction. The other day I was somewhere, and I quipped, hey, remember those things we used to have before COVID? What were they called? Friends? So look, there's always a downside of inviting more technology into your life. All right? And so the article talks about a hybrid future with permanent online services and a shift from the in-person gatherings. And look, if you're homebound, if you're bedridden, of course, that's understandable. But if you can, get out there and have real friends, because you can commiserate and realize, hey, my life isn't the worst in the world. The other day when I was talking about the friends, I said, that's cool because I thought it was just me, but okay, other people are going through stuff too. Wow, it makes me feel better, right? Of whatever it is in life, of whatever it is, you can commiserate. And So, let's see here. Archdiocese of Boston has been losing about 2% of its population each year since the early 80s, blah, blah, blah. And so that's, yeah. If there's not obligation pressure driving them, if there's no social pressure again, how are they going to form the habit again? The answer is this forces us to focus on the love of relationship of God and what we should have been focusing on. And that's the thing. Look, folks, for me, I tried to make the best of COVID, right? I walked every day and lost some weight and got some exercise, and I loved the fact that there were no stupid obligations of like social obligations and things to do. And I loved that. And another thing is, look, in any time of trial, I always look to the Lord more. So sure, there's going to be people who don't want to go to church. And again, if you weren't enjoying it or getting anything out of it or whatever, fine, you don't have to go. But for those of us who want to care about the Lord, you will get more out of it. Like it brought a lot of people. COVID brought a lot of people to the Lord who didn't care about him before, is what I'm trying to say. So that's that. It was a trial, right? And during any trial, you have a choice. And some churches expect that worship will increasingly move outside their buildings and expand into new ways of meeting in person. And yeah, absolutely. My buddy, Pastor Dominic, always says that you have to meet the world where they are, and you don't have to water yourself down. But maybe this means doing a little more digital and evangelism, and maybe this just means walking around town and talking to people and talking to the community. Again, going back to dialogue. This includes micro gatherings of members or at-home events designed to attract those who feel more comfortable at home, right? And you don't have to design something to attract certain things. That's what businesses do. We're not a business, right? But, micro gatherings are fine. Like, they have men's club and women's club and youth group and whatever at a lot of churches. And so that's fine. Or at-home events, that's how church started. They would go to people's homes, right? And some churches are still like that. The Baha'i church is like that, where they still gather in people's homes and have snacks and talk. And that's pretty cool. And... this is interesting. Linda, a 50-year-old who hadn't attended church since her Catholic upbringing as a teenager, said a string of trial visits to a home worship group early on during the pandemic prompted her to join a summit church after meeting a friend at the gym. It makes church smaller and more intimate. Okay, cool. So fine. If you want to do church at someone's house, and if it actually helps you, and if you truly care, that's that. All right, I think that's enough out of me today. We're going to do more of this where we just leaf through articles. And all right, my name is Mark Anthony Arena. I am so glad you have joined me today. Thanks so much for celebrating 9,000 downloads with me. We'll be back next week or so. I'm actually traveling next week, so it might be a couple weeks. And we'll be back soon. And I was at my high school reunion a couple nights ago, so shout out to any of those friends who ended up listening to my show, those classmates. And we'll talk to you soon. And check out the preview edition of my forthcoming book at thecomputerexorcist.com.